Hello and welcome to episode 1342 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Thursday, September 12th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this afternoon by Justin Mason. Justin, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How you doing?
I'm doing well. I can't remember if we ironed out what day we were going to do on the last podcast so that people knew that today was going to be the day. I feel like we did, but maybe we didn't. But either way, we're going to finish talking about our top 13 rookie pitchers by volume. We're just going in an order of innings right now, just an easy way to kind of get a good cross section of rookies. We did the same with the hitters, ranked by plate appearances. Don't worry if you're big Austin Wells guy on the hitting side, or I don't know who's a rookie pitcher that hasn't pitched a ton of innings that people would be thinking that we forgot. Whoever that may be.
Rhett Lauder, who
Right, right.
had another good start and is
He will
now
get his due. When we
yeah.
do we will revisit rookies. I'll probably, unless our opinions have changed, we'll point back to these for some of the guys and say, hey, I still love Spencer Schwellenbach. I loved him when we talked about him, whatever. But then we'll get into the Randy Vasquez's, the DJ Hers is because he's 22nd on this list, et cetera, et cetera. You get the gist. Let's dive back in. We did give a little love to Shota Imanaga because he is technically a rookie, but we were really focused more on, minor league rookies. So Gavin Stone, Mitchell Parker, Luis Heel, Mitch Spence, Simeon Woods Richardson, Spencer Arrighetti, and Kyle Harrison were in the first episode. Let's start off with one of the biggest surprises. We were making jokes about how, or not even jokes, we were just telling the truth about how we didn't know who the hell Mitchell Parker was coming into the year. And, I don't know every player, so sometimes I'll miss on somebody who ends up coming up and making a real impact. And sometimes there'll be multiple players, including our next guy here, Tobias Myers. He's basically righty Mitchell Parker for me. I did not know who this guy was, an org level prospect for Milwaukee. I don't remember him getting any sort of particular buzz from any pocket of the fantasy market or anything like that. In fact, he wasn't even an org prospect in the Milwaukee system. I'm looking at it right now. We didn't even have him out of 42 guys. So, where the hell did Tobias Myers come from this year, and how has he been able to deliver the way he has? 120 innings, ninth most, and a 2.93 ERA, Justin. I know he hasn't fully earned it, but the results are the results, and they're helping the Brewers a ton. What's up with Tobias Myers?
So yeah, I mean Myers has just been unreal, and another one of these guys. I mentioned this when we talked about Mitchell Parker. Like nobody drafted him in a DC. Like
Absolutely
that,
not.
like I've already I checked the ADP. There's not a single DC drafted with Tobias Myers. So
And
there was
Tobias Myers' dad plays like 20 DCs.
yeah, like he wasn't even in on it. So I think there was 315 DCs this year. Those are all 15 team leagues. So
50 round drafts, y'all.
50 round drafts. Like nobody knew the guy was
Right.
From a fantasy angle. And I mean, for good reason. If you look at like Tobias Myers' stuff, like it's not very good overall. Like he doesn't have
that is true.
Like he doesn't have a single pitch. He has one pitch that rates higher than 100 stuff plus.
The changeup.
Yeah, the changeup. But he's got 6 pitches. Almost all of them are below 100. But what he
I will say this though. Go ahead. You're going to get right into it. Go ahead.
What he does do well is he mixes really well. He can throw all of his pitches pretty much at any time. And he's got a complete arsenal of pitches, right? Like when you can throw 6 different pitches and throw, I think 4 or 5 of them more than 10% of the time, like you're going to be guessing when you get up there. And I think that Tobias Myers is in some ways, like obviously not as soft tossing as, now I've just blanked on
Kyle Hendricks.
I was going to say Jamie Moyer.
Oh, okay. Because Hendricks is usually our go-to with this era. But yeah, Jamie Moyer, like he's not quite super crafty, junk baller. But Tobias Myers is a kitchen sinker who is absolutely the classic pitcher overthrower. He throws 93. That's fun. That's below average, I believe. So as crazy as that sounds. But it's fine. Like you can get by with it when you have a kitchen sink approach. You mentioned the stuff plus how nothing but the changeup is above 100 or even 95 in this case, but the location plus on everything except the changeup is over 100. And I wonder if there's even some purposefulness in the location of the changeup, being like pitches that just dive. He's not exactly worried about the location. He's trying to get the swing over the top of them. it all adds up to a pitching plus metric, which is 97, which is still 3 points below league average. But I do think in this instance, the location is carrying him, along with the great defense that he has and the wonderful bullpen support that Milwaukee also
Yeah.
offers to ensure that those few extra runs that might push Tobias Myers closer to the 4 Sierra or 410 FIP that he's had, those don't get pushed across when those guys are coming in and the line of guys that they've brought in this year to consistently do well out of the bullpen. So everything's cooking for Tobias Myers. He's basically doing from the right hand side what they were hoping Wade Miley could do, right? He was
Yeah.
kind of that direct fill in, and that's great. But I have to ask the tough question, which is how do we assess this for next year?
I think he's going to be one of those guys that is a boring innings eater type that you can stick in the, middle to back of your rotation and
He'll
be
be
pretty
dirt
happy.
cheap, right? Tobias Myers will
Yeah,
not have a high price tag.
I don't think he's going to be a top 200 pick. I don't
I
think he
don't either.
deserves to necessarily be a top 200
Right.
pick either.
Right.
But I think he can probably outdo that, right? I think the projections are going to come in on him, and if you look at what his rest of season projections are, which I think will be a good indication of where projections have
Next
him
year's will
for
be,
next
yeah.
season. ATC has him as a 4.49 ERA rest of the season. The Bat has him as a 4.66. Steamer has him a 4.26. I'm going to project him for better than that. I won't have him towards a 3 ERA, but why not a mids 3 ERA with a 115 type whip and a guy who, he's not going to strike out a lot of guys, but he's been close to a strikeout an inning this season. Why do we think that he's going to go that
8-4.
far away from that? So
8.4 K9 for Tobias. So you're thinking that there could be something here because he is so cheap too, right? I don't have the highest hopes, but I also believe firmly with you that the price tag just isn't going to be at a level that I'm going to be that bothered if he even stone cold flops, right? I think you can take on a total bust here with Tobias Myers, and because of where I expect him to cost, it won't kill you. So if you want to run it back, if you believe in this Milwaukee system here, and you think they can even improve him, because there's also the potential for that at least, right? I don't think he's going to go add 5 miles of velo, but what if he finds a little bit more swing and miss and something other than the changeup, and then pushes that 9.5 swing and strike rate up to 11.5, 12%. We would call that 12% either way. We'd round it up. Then all of a sudden you are in that 25% K rate with the good walks. Then it really comes down to the home run suppression, which has been very favorable for Tobias Myers this year. So I expect big regression, but I think it can have value. And, we live in the deep league space. So a guy like this will be on a radar. I will say this, in 12 teams, I'm not sure you need to have him as anything more than a potential reserve for Tobias Myers.
I agree, but I would like to point out, if you look at what he's done in the second half, his strikeout rate is up. He's gotten up to almost 25% strikeout rate in the second half.
Then he's already doing what I foretold it.
Yeah, and in that time, he hasn't really raised the walk rate. It's been 6%. So, I think that this is one of those guys that he's never going to be a league winner. He doesn't have that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But could he perform like an SP3 next year that you're getting as an SP6 or 7? I think you could.
Right. And I will reinvoke the name of his teammate, lefty Wade Miley, who, I spent years just investing in. Now, I understand why people don't love investing in those guys, because when the bombs hit, they sting. My boy Greg, he does not mess with this profile type. He's all shooting for the moon. Our boy Nick doesn't mess with that profile type. And I do understand that. But I try to find the pockets of value with them, especially in the deeper formats. And I just don't think Tobias Myers will be expensive next year, so you can jump back in if you like him. This guy will be expensive, though. Again, we're not going in order of quality. We're going in order of innings, and that's why it took this long to get to Paul Skenes. Oh, my God. I've already said it, I think maybe on this show, but definitely on a couple other things where I've guested on. He will have a number one overall min pick in the main event next year, Paul Skenes. And again, I don't even think that I'm on some flimsy branch. I'm basically on the stump because I think that is a stone cold lock. Let's talk Skenesy. First off, are you in on that? Would you do that? If you're taking pitcher, Let's say you get the one and you want to take pitcher. Do you go Skenes or Scooble or third party?
I don't think
Oh
I'm
my
taking any. Yeah, he just gave up a home run. That's awesome.
Josh Hader so much.
I don't think I'm taking any pitcher first overall next year.
I'm not either personally.
I just don't think that. I think there is enough pitching talent and depth, especially at the top couple tiers, that I think it's kind of a mistake. And I think that there are clear game-changing hitters that are going to be going at the top of the draft that I don't want to miss out on. So if I have, I also think this is a year in which I don't want to draft first overall, right? Like I think that
get a little deeper.
Yeah, if I want to draft towards the top, I'm going to draft third or fourth if I have a choice, right?
Right.
So
I can vibe with that for sure. Where do you look at Skenes then? Where would he fall? Where you go, you know what? My hitters have gone. All my like bang foundation ace hitters have gone. Let me get the arm. Where would you be comfortable with Skenes? 10?
Yeah, I think somewhere after 7 or 8.
Okay.
And I don't think that Skenes is my number one coming into next year. I think
Scoobs.
I think Scooble is my number one coming into
Same.
next season. So like for Skenes specifically, if I'm sitting around 10, 11, 12 and Skenes is sitting there, I may take him. I'm not saying he's off my board by any stretch of the imagination, but I have a feeling that in the vast majority of my drafts, if I'm sitting at 10, 11, and 12, Skenes is not going to be an option for me.
Right.
So,
which
I totally understand. But I think Skenes for me is likely my third SP coming in.
Wheeler?
Yeah, I think it's going to be either Wheeler or
Sale?
Yeah, no, I don't think I can do Sale over Skenes.
Just a little older.
Well, yeah, and just I mean the amount of injuries he's had over the course of his recent career that I'm a little worried about. But I don't know. I mean, I'm going to be really interested to see where Skenes comes out on my ranks, because it's going to be one of those guys where I think he's going to grade out higher than I might be willing to take a shot on him. I'm definitely a little bit afraid of a young pitcher who throws as hard as he does in terms of holding up for a full season in the majors.
I'm sorry, say that last part. You don't have that concern of Skenes holding up?
No, I do have some concern on he just throws so hard and he's so young.
True.
And these are going to be huge workload jumps year to year.
But now, the upside is the top pitcher in baseball, and I gotta get in on that.
I'm sure I will draft Skenes in a spot next year. Will it be on my main events or on my $1,500 auction teams? I don't think it will be. I don't think it's
opportunity costs a lot different in an auction though. That is your strong suit, so you can still get, one of those aircraft carriers, as I think Dan O'Dowd likes to call them.
The problem is I never auction those guys in auctions. Like my auction strategy is so balanced that I end up drafting like the bottom tier aces, because the top Skenes will go for 40 something bucks in those auctions, and I don't think it is very rare that any pitcher is worth 40 something bucks in my eyes.
It's scary. It's easy to look back and say they were. It's hard to know who it's going to be in a given year. But Skenes has one of the higher probabilities. He's been amazing.
If you look at our player rater, there are no $40 pitchers.
Oh wow, none. Yeah, Scoobs is at 34,
and that is what typically I typically when I do mine, and a lot of other people are going to have 4 or 5 $40 pitchers on there. I don't have any. I don't think that any pitcher is worth, because it is so hard for them to move that needle away from the hitting. So I doubt I end up with a Scooble in auctions. I doubt I end up with a Skenes in auctions. I'm going to be the guy that ends up with, I don't know, Bryce Miller and Logan Gilbert.
That Seattle staff still. I got plenty of love for them still.
The guys that are just a little bit undervalued in the market, those are the guys that are on everybody's top 12 starting pitchers, but they're all like 10, 11, 12. Like those are the guys I end up with.
I was talking with Patrick Davitt about this of Baseball HQ, and he was really highlighting how much he likes Brian Wu of that Seattle group and where he's going. I think you've expressed some of the concerns about the injury, but I think that is, part of the cost there. Like I think he's going cheaper because there is the concern he didn't have the great innings this year. But yeah, Skenes, I mean, he'll be a first rounder in just about everything. Another scenario that Patrick and I had hit on, what about like a 12 teamer where you just go Skenes Scooble on the turn and just say, bang, I'm trying to get 400 amazing innings and then I'm going to hammer hitting in a 12 teamer.
So I think they've done that back-to-back years.
That's classic pocket aces there. Shouts to Toby.
Yeah. In the AFL, drafts, I think I've done that back-to-back years. Now, this year did not work out so well.
Who were you guys?
I think I got Cole Burns. And Burns. No. Or maybe it was Cole Burns. But the year before it worked out great when I know I took Cole Burns.
The year before Cole Burns was great. If you ran it back, I think you maybe did run it back.
I think I did. I can double check. Yeah. But that sounds right.
But hey, it doesn't always work. And the classic Ron Chandlerism is every strategy works with the right players, right? And that's definitely the case. I do think Skenes very viable first rounder, viable for the number one spot. I'm also a Scooble guy. It's not just Tigers bias. I'm just going to take the guy that's got a bit more track record, especially if everything else is pretty equal. And I think there's, a case to be made that the Tigers are better set up.
I took Strider Burns.
Oh, Strider Burns. Yeah. Okay. So Strider
from the 9 spot. Yeah.
Right. Right. And loved it at the time. I'm sure I was jocking you on that. Like,
my God,
classic. I love that.
I bet you I love this draft, and it has been an unmitigated disaster.
Give it to us.
Strider Burns from the 9 spot.
Mm-hmm.
Simeon. Then Hader, he's been good, but he hasn't been great.
Right.
CJ Abrams, who's been fine, right? He's been kind of exactly what you wanted. Mike Trout.
Oh.
Christian Walker's missed time. Zach Eflin,
who has been good when he's played.
Eflin has not been the guy
did not live up. No.
Jorge Solera, who's been hugely disappointing, and then Noah LV Marte from the 10th round. And
can I one down you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because my shit's actually worse, dude. Believe it or not.
Oh my God, I'm looking I'm looking at it.
Yeah, outside of Ohtani at the 2, it's Cole, Royce Lewis, Yohan Duran, Matt McClain, Bobby Miller, William Contreras, CES, TJ Friedel, James Outman, and that's my top 10. That's horrendous, bro.
Yeah, that is pretty bad.
That is horrendous. Anyway, back on track here. Paul Skenes, he's a god. You can take him in the first round if you want. Joey Estes, we talked a little Mitch Spence. We're back in Oakland here, and we've already highlighted that, we're thinking that maybe Sacramento won't play as crazily for hitters as we originally thought. Got some information about the both the humidor, because all major league teams are using a humidor, so they can just crank it up. And simply the park factors are not nearly what you would expect for a PCL team, when it gets hot the way it does over there. Played pretty pitcher friendly. So how does that possibly change your outlook of Joey Estes? Because we were saying every Oakland hitter, 0 Oakland pitchers. I've amended where I'm like, I'll still take the pitchers I like. I'm still a JP Sears guy. Got some love for Spence, and I got a little bit of love for Estes. Where do you come out with Joey Estes?
He's been really, really good in the second half, but where he has been terrible has been on the road this year.
Right. He's been the classic home only.
Yeah, 6.18 road ERA. And that concerns me when you're moving away from the comfy confines of Oakland and the Coliseum. So I am encouraged by the fact that in the second half, he has been a lot less hittable. He's given up a few more home runs, but he's given up a lot less doubles in the second half. 25 doubles in the first half, only 7 given up, no triples in the second half. But I just don't know how much I buy him from a straight skills perspective.
I think he's still developing. I don't think we've
Yeah.
seen like everything isn't here in Joey Estes' profile to point to and say like, oh, this is why he's going to pop off. And I think for obvious reasons, it can be hard with guys like that to, you know, be sold on them because you're not necessarily seeing it. But you kind of understand that the elements might be there to make a big leap, right? Because guys make big leaps all the time. And when they're guys we buy in, we're like, okay, well, we saw that the foundation was there, that they could take this big step forward, and voila, here they are. I don't know that he's got all these components that make me think that Joey Estes is like a badass.
Mm-hmm.
But do I think he could cut the home runs and put together some competent innings? Yes. You did point out the road work. It's not just like one dud. It is 4 implosions, y'all. 6 earned in 2 2/3 at Mini, 8 earned in 3 2/3 at Houston, 8 earned in an inning and 2/3 at Boston, and then 0 earned in 2 2/3 at that was actually a relief appearance. Sorry, I was sorting by game score, and that was at the bottom. There is no game score for that. So 3 mega duds on the road. Those are his 3 worst starts of the year by miles, and they're all on the road. So, it's not like he's never had any good starts on the road, but those 3 have really punished him, and he's been wonderful at home. His worst start at home, Seattle did get to him for 4 runs in 4 innings for Joey Estes, but every other start has been at least 5-something innings and 2 runs or fewer at home.
Yeah, and I mean, I will say that like he has definitely made some sort of approach change here in the second half. Like the fact that he's doing better in the second half is kind of indicative of like him trying to attack the zone and walk fewer guys, right? Like he's saying like, I think I've got okay stuff and I'm going to trust my park behind me. And hopefully that kind of, makes things work out a little bit better for him. I just do worry that like we're still not going to be looking at Oakland as a team that's going to win a lot of games. He's still a guy who gives up a lot of contact because he's in the zone so much that
he needs a swing and miss pitch to like really step forward.
Really
right now, it's not there. I don't think the slider alone is going to do it. So Joey Estes does need something that can start generating some misses, but he puts the ball where he wants consistently, which I do like. And that's why he doesn't walk anybody. That's always a nice foundation to work off of, but it does come with a 1.4 homer rate. And so when you live in the zone that much and you don't have overpowering stuff, you are susceptible to homers. And that does scare me. So I do think there's some draft champions love here for Joey Estes, but that's as far as I go right now.
I think he's one of these guys that could be a back end of your rotation kind of team streamer in a deeper league.
Right.
Where, again, he's not going to be a guy who wins you any leagues, but could he be a competent like 6-7 starter on your team? I think there is that in that profile. I just don't tend to draft these guys. These are the type of guys I tend to pick up off of waivers.
Sure. Maybe if they have a good schedule at the front end, you might jump on them. But other than that, I understand kind of playing waivers with guys like Joey Estes.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I can't remember. I totally forgot something about another Oakland guy, but who gives a shit? Let's go on to our other Pirate that I know folks have been waiting for us to talk about. Skenes and his partner in crime, Jared Jones, who was actually there first, right? He was laying the groundwork, and we were like, oh my God, wait till Skenes gets here, and they go 1-2 punch. Unfortunately, as Skenes was taking off, Jones got hurt. Had a few bumps in the road, and then also got hurt, out for a while. And now Skenes actually has more innings than him, obviously, because he was earlier on the list. So now we're looking at 108 innings out of Jared Jones, but a 3.82 ERA and a 1.11 WHIP. Lots to like still, even with the shakiness before and after the injury. There's so much to like about what Jared Jones did this year. Question is, how do we spin it forward? It's been kind of a busted second half with just 3 starts. Does that give you pause for next year? Are you in? Where do you stand with Jared Jones after what we've seen for 108 innings?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some talk in the offseason about like, hey, Jared Jones' second half, like how worried we are about that. He has had 2 homers per 9 in the second half. It's only been a few starts though. So like I'm not like super worried about it. The skills are all intact, where he's still got a 25% strikeout rate and a 6% walk rate. I'm I love Jared Jones. I think
Me
he
too.
is going to be a really, really good pitcher. And if there's any sort of discount based on like kind of this second half where he's coming off injury and maybe not as sharp as he was in the first half, I'm going to take it. I think that he has.
First draft says no.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I'm sure there won't be very much.
Sorry, I cut you off. I think you were going to say you think he has ace upside.
I do. I think he's like an SP.
I do too. Jared Jones is a stud. He went 110 in this draft. Now, don't forget, when this draft was going off, he was either just returning or still on the shelf. And he had 4 innings, 5 runs in his first start back. So the mood on him was probably tempered a little bit. So he goes 110. If he puts up a few starts down the stretch here where he looks more like the Jared Jones that we felt, and in fact, a few more, I should say, because his subsequent 2 against the Cubs, a second time, and then Washington have been back to Jared Jones. If he puts up another couple like that, he's easy a top 100 pick. And I'm open to paying it. I mean, Michael King went 89, Sonny Gray 90, Robbie Ray 91. I'm fine with Jared Jones right around there.
I'm taking him over all those guys, except for maybe Sonny Gray, who's just like an
King.
wonder.
I like King a little bit better, but I like Jones up there. What about Luis Castillo, Logan Webb, Shane McClanahan? Is Jones in that group?
I think Jones falls just short of some of those guys. Okay. I think he's above McClanahan until I see McClanahan pitch.
I think that's totally fair. Flaherty, Bybee, Imanaga bridge the gap between those last 3 I told you, and then the King, Gray, Ray group.
I think that's the spot for him.
Okay, so then he would jump up a decent bit here from this 110 that somebody got him at in this draft, and I'm with you. I think I'm taking him late 80s, early 90s. I love Jared Jones, and I hope I honestly 80s would constitute a discount still, because if he had just kept going at the trajectory he was at, he'd be a top 40 pick. So we are actually getting a discount, believe it or not. Let's actually talk a relative bright spot for the White Sox. I know that sounds oxymoronic and downright crazy, but I think Jonathan Cannon did some nice things this year in his 107 innings. Even at times having some fantasy relevance with a 2-step that was maybe on the road against a couple decent matchups, or facing the Tigers in a difficult and one other like medium matchup or something. Only went 3-10 because obviously that team sucks. 4.56 ERA and 140 WHIP definitely don't jump off the page. That's why I said it's like been pockets of value. He builds off of control. We have not seen really any swing and miss, but 23-year-old Jonathan Cannon, do they have something here? Do they have a back-end rotation guy? Is there anything to get excited about with Jonathan Cannon possibly developing beyond this either?
It's hard. I feel like Cannon is going to end up, like if he was on a different team, he'd be in the bullpen.
Right. But except that he has like 42 pitches. He'd be doing multi-innings out of the bullpen.
Yeah, exactly. There is something interesting about him in that
you can't pinpoint it, but it's like there.
Oh, I think I can pinpoint it.
Pinpoint it for me, because I'm just like the essence of Jonathan Cannon.
It's the sweeper. The sweeper has a 27% whiff rate. Like it's
okay. That's the winner.
Like that is, I think that's like, if you look at the stuff plus, I think we have it down as
a slider. Okay,
slider. Yeah. It's a 117 stuff plus.
Light years better than anything else he has.
Yeah, and I mean, all of his pitches are around league average. A couple of them a little bit better league average and location plus. But that sweeper just stands out in terms of stuff. And so like, if he can figure out a way to maybe come up with another pitch, like maybe it's changing the grip on the fastball a little bit to kind of play off of that sweeper, I think you've got something then. And the nice thing about being in Chicago is while the team sucks. So like he's going to get an opportunity.
Get your chances.
Stick in this rotation. I mean, this is in many reasons why, or the same kind of reasons why I drafted a lot of Jesse Schultons in early DCs, because I was like, hey, Jesse Schultons, I don't know how good he really is, but he's going to pitch.
Get some hurt. Right.
Yeah. And so I think you can say the same thing for like your draft champions leagues, or your really deep 15s. Like, hey, Jonathan Cannon is going to be in this rotation. And for good reason. Like, he's done a decent job of like, he's got a 7.5% walk rate. Like, He doesn't give up a crap ton of home runs.
No, he's
I
not
think
bad. He's not
like
bad.
he's gonna be an interesting real life pitcher. The question is, will that translate to fantasy? I don't know that it will outside of like your deep leagues where you need innings.
Like AL onlys and
Yeah,
DCs and stuff right now for
unless he
Cannon.
makes like he's one of these guys. If Jonathan Cannon goes to Driveline, like or has like a really interesting offseason where he changes something, I could see something with Jonathan Cannon. But from like for those of you in 10s and 12s, and even most people who play like regular 15s, like I don't know that Cannon is going to register outside of like a streamer off the wire.
I totally agree with that. I don't think you need to be like overly aware of him right now. But yeah, a pitch mix change, something developing to go with the sweeper, we could have something here because he knows how to locate and he's got an ace pitch, an A pitch, I should say. I don't want to imply that that's making him an ace.
It's not an ace pitch, but yeah,
no, but it's a good pitch. It's something to build off of, and a second pitch would maybe give him a little bit more swing and miss because right now it's 16% K. The win probability is low too, so that's why it's really hard to see anything more than streaming right now for Cannon. But a name I do like. Let's end on a high note. A guy we have talked about a decent bit recently, but I'm always down to talk about Spencer Schwellenbach, dude. That guy rules. Holy smokes, has he been good? We talk about the concept of league winner, and definitely think we loosely slang it because it's fun to be like, oh my god, this guy's winning me the league. Tough start last time out because Toronto has really amped up their abilities lately. They're a little bit tougher than you think. I wouldn't have sat him at all. I'm not suggesting that.
No.
But he did give up 10 hits in 5 innings, 6 runs. Only 3 of them earned, though. So you got a little break there. Only 3 Ks. I do see only 5 Ks in his last 2. We're seeing a little hiccup here for Schwellenbach. Kind of bumpy landing here coming out of a full season. What do we think here? Because 5 Ks in 2 starts is pretty rough for a guy that went 8, 11, 10, 7, 8, 9, 8 in the previous several starts there. Now, it was Philly and Toronto, 2 quality clubs, but where are we at on Schwellenbach before we spin it forward for next year?
Yeah, I mean, Philly and Toronto, even though like I think they get a reputation for, like being kind of some free swinging teams, they're actually like in the bottom third of the league in terms of strikeouts in the second half. So like I'm not overly worried about Spencer Schwellenbach not getting a ton of strikeouts in those games, especially when you look at these second half numbers and you see the 53 innings and a 31% strikeout rate with a 4%
even with
walk
those
rate,
2 games.
Even with those 2 games. So like I think Spencer Schwellenbach is a star in the making. I really do. And I want to temper my expectations, but like I honestly
too, but I
feel so similarly that I did to Tanner Bybee coming into this season, where there were a number of people in the industry who were kind of crapping on him a little bit, and I was like, no, I think this guy is a dude. And then he started off slow, and I was like, oh no, I was wrong.
Oh no, they were right.
Yeah, nope. And they're right.
He rebounded.
Tanner Bybee's been great this year. I think Spencer Schwellenbach is probably going to go in that same kind of, maybe just inside or just outside the top 100 picks, and I'm going to pay it all day. He's going to be one of my more rostered guys coming in 2025.
I think so too, and I understand the idea, notion of like tapping the brakes on a rookie. I get it. But sometimes you can't. I don't know. It's hard, right? I don't have hard and fast rules. I'm not always out on like a sophomore season or whatever. I understand the concerns of regression and things like that. I mean, he went 141 in this draft. He has subsequently put up more good starts. And I don't think that the 2 in September would really push his price down for this drafting group here. They're not going to react to a couple starts that too harshly like that. I don't think he'll be a 141 ADP, but I do think Spencer Schwellenbach could be outside the top 100. I certainly think there's a world.
He will be on every single one of my teams if he's outside the top 100. He has 3 of his 6 pitches are
6.
above hit or 100 or above in stuff plus, and
it's amazing.
All 6 are above 100 in location plus. This guy has amazing command and control and some pitches with good stuff. He's got 6 pitches he can use at different times. He's in a good pitching organization that understands how to teach him how to sequence and mix. I'm all in on Spencer Schwellenbach.
Same.
Like the more I talk about him, the more, like I just want to shut up because I don't want to drive up his price at all. But like at the same time, like I just think he's going to be on every single one of my teams. I think there's a like if you like Spencer Schwellenbach, stay out of my drafts. So I don't have to pay more.
So like, oh, by the way, I'm looking at the last podcast notes, and I put a note in the show notes that, hey, we said it was going to be tomorrow, but it's actually Thursday. So we are covered on that.
Yeah,
yes.
we're good.
I'd forgotten about that. Okay. But yes, you know who this kind of reminds me of in terms of a guy that like I was all in on, I was ready to pay any premium. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't crazy expensive. It's Christopher Sanchez. Remember, I couldn't shut up about him last second half. Got all my shares. Things have gone very well. We'll see if it goes the same way with Schwellenbach because I'm in. I'm absolutely in. I do think his price could shoot up quite a bit higher than Sanchez's, though, because he really brings that devastating swing and miss that we didn't really see out of Sanchez and nobody was really predicting. And he's 3 years younger. So there's more to dream on here with Schwelly. So it's a similar thing, but like at a higher level. It's like the premium version of what I did with Sanchez last year. But you and I will be fighting because you and I will be in some leagues together.
You stay out of my drafts. You leave my.
I'm stalking you. Yeah. I actually have called NFBC. That's right. They're just you just dial NFBC on your phone and you get one of them. And I said, ping me anytime that effer joins a draft. Actually, you know what? Here's my card number. Just put me in it. Don't worry about it. Okay. So all you have to do is call NFBC and they'll do it. No, I'm just kidding. But we will end up in a league together and we will have an arms race for Spencer Schwellenbach. It'll be fun. Yep. We will talk more rookie pitchers in October, November whenever we do the full scale breakdown. But there's a lot of guys that are going to be making an impact next year. The tough part is, Justin, and the ugly part is some of them will bust. We don't necessarily know which ones. Now we have our feelings on who we're not as keen on and everything. But I want to end on the positive. From this group here, which has 3 monsters, I can't. You're just going to choose Schwellenbach. I'm removing Schwellenbach.
Yeah, it's going to be Schwellenbach.
So basically, just choose Skenes or Jones at their prices. I know you said you're not super in on first round. Okay, yeah, so just because you're not going to pay that first round for what if Skenes is a second rounder?
Oh, then I'm sure I'll end up with a lot of Skenes, but I still think Jones for me is going to be the better.
You still would rather pay the 100 something for him? Yeah, that's fair. Okay,
if I'm in a 10-team league, so like I don't play in any 10-team leagues. I don't imagine that I'm going to play in any 10-team leagues next season, but
we're not disparaging them. It's just, for me, it's the volatility between the fabs of 10, 12s, and 15s. I just want to keep it consistent.
And NFBC doesn't run any, and I predominantly play on NFBC now. So like they don't run any 10. If they had some 10-team games, I might actually play in a few of them. But I just, in a 10-team league, I would probably prioritize Skenes just because the replacement value.
Shoot the moon there.
Yeah. You're just going for the upside. And like you said, like of all these guys we talked about, the only one that is likely to be the first pitcher in the player rater at the end of next season is Paul Skenes. So I if I'm in a shallow league, if I'm in a 10 or even some 12s, I think of a place where
replacement level is high there too.
I do play some 12s. I've got an OC this year where I'm hoping to hold on to the lead and win that league. Like I could see myself drafting Paul Skenes in a 12.
Yeah, I could certainly see it too. Boy, I still think. Never mind. I was going to get on a tangent, and I don't want to because it was going to take me back to taking Acuna. Not that I ever considered taking anybody else, but I remember when Strider got hurt. Even Jen, who doesn't follow football, she's like, "Oh, the pitcher got hurt. The guy you were going to consider taking," because I had really just loosely telling her about the things, and so she had found out that he had gotten hurt, and I had to tell her a few weeks later. I'm like, "Yeah, now the hitter got hurt too." So I lost either way.
Somebody messaged me, and I'm gonna try to find it as we wrap this up, but that I believe it was
Toyota's legendary truck event.
Scared the hell out of me.
Sorry, the game was still on my phone.
That's all right.
Okay. So it was Richard Sands.
Okay.
So shout out to him. The number 1 pick in the main event and in TGFBI was the kiss of death. The highest overall person who had the number one pick in TGFBI is 36th overall.
What did that superhuman do? Because again, everyone
Yeah.
either took
In the
Acuna
main
or
event,
Strider.
you 38th. You were not in the top 37 spots in the overall if you took the first overall pick, which was either Strider or Acuna. So
Crazy year. Like, I mean, you don't see that. And you know, I want to be clear. I wasn't like fist pumping when Strider got hurt. I was just like, wow, you know, the bigger risk busted there. That stinks. I hope Acuna is good. And like I said, a few weeks later, he's cooked. By the way, I do always blame. I just kind of realized this. I always blame my second main on Trout and Royce Lewis. I had Acuna on that team, so that's probably a bigger reason than those other two. But those three players alone basically just tell you the story of that team. I know it doesn't mention a single pitcher. And
how is that team doing in terms of pitching? It's like that was a team where like. Because that was a team you waited forever to get pitchers.
Right, and I got Bybee and Imanaga as my aces. I only have 15 pitching points.
Oh, well, there's a problem.
Now,
I think
there
was some roster construction issues on that one.
Yeah, there was some trouble. Well, actually, here's the thing. How much of that 15 is because I'm just keeping a live lineup at this point, and how much of it is bad? Because Imanaga, Bybee, Crawford as a top three, Cutter Crawford, until, you know, he had a blip. He like fell off the rails there for a while, but his composite season's still 409, 108. And then Bybee, you talked about how he's gotten fully on board, and Imanaga's been a sub 3. Oh, he's over 3 now. He's at 303. So those are my 1, 2, 3. So the problem is it drops off a cliff from there. But that's also because I haven't been managing as hard. I'm just trying to keep a live roster and, you know, not be an asshole with dead spots.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not trying to be defensive of you saying there's construction issues, because that team was just not good. And I think that is 100% true.
You also had like you Darvish on that squad.
And I didn't get any closers except for Diaz. I got Diaz and then Skunked.
Yeah.
Because I was going to take Robert Suarez. I never tell anybody this. But I was going to take my guys were Robert Suarez and Evan Phillips, guys.
We all get those teams that just like you look at it at the end of the season, you go,
everything went wrong.
That's just a bad team. Like I look at all my DCs this year and I go, those are just bad teams. Like I just like, you know,
I've already mentioned on the show, I am reworking my DC strategy. I've never been Mr. DC. You know, I've never been like a stud at them, got some cashes, but I did horrible this year. And I looked at the construction of those teams and there was no back half plan outside of like getting enough catchers. And like I was getting the positions. I wasn't just drafting completely willy-nilly, but there was no structure in who I wanted. I broke some of the cardinal rules that you and I talk about with regards to how many prospects I was drafting and how many dead spots and this and that. Just carelessness, just taking $150 and shitting on it. Not doing that this year. And that means my first one probably won't be until November, because I want to have a full list. And if that takes me a month to get together, then it does.
So when I identified what my weakness is, when I first did the series on the Justin Mason Apology Tour, right? I had the really bad season, was 2022. And one of the things I identified on all of my teams was that I didn't do a good enough job getting those number 3 and number 4 starting pitchers, right? Like I waited too long and I ended up having like really bad pitching. And one of the things that I addressed last year that made me so successful was getting a lot of those like pitchers, but also like just having better overall roster construction.
Mm-hmm.
In my DCs, I look and I go, I think I went too far in terms of making sure I got those number 3 or number 4 starters. Like I got too many and it left my offense dry. And so
you need to pound those offensive numbers in those DCs,
because you can find starting pitchers, you know, you can find those
within your roster.
Yeah, like
because it's a 50-round draft and all. But yes, you're supposed to have that depth to be churning, and you rarely pluck a hitter that you drafted in like the 45th round Like there's just not many of those that turn the
you
way the pitchers do.
you can find the Jake Irvins, and you can find like those guys that you get outside of round 40 that are going to throw, like they may not throw amazing innings, but they're going to throw 140, 150 innings.
Right.
What you can't find is 600 plate appearance dudes.
Nope.
Like it's really,
Almost
really difficult
never.
to find those guys. And I think that's where I made the mistake in my DCs. And I'll do like the apology tour again this year, just because it's such a fun article to write and I learned so much from it. But like that's where I feel like I missed in the DCs.
Yeah. And you know, I just didn't have the volume I needed, and it was very obvious. Yeah, and we talk another thing about like the prospects versus the crusties, the crusty veterans. Like think about the people that just, you know, it's boring as hell, 32nd round or whatever the hell it was. Nobody gives a shit, but you take Jesse Winker. Now, does Jesse Winker do that every year? No, but there are guys that do that every year.
Yeah.
And the people that consistently take the veterans who can find a second, third life of playing time. I'm bringing up Winker specifically because he's front of mind today for me, but it doesn't have to be him because he didn't really have a good reason to buy in much this year because he was coming off of a dead year. But if you just buy the track record, just say this is a guy that he was a total dud in 23, but if somebody gives him a shot, who cares?
And we knew he was going to get a shot in Washington.
In Washington,
how bad their offense was shaping up to be at the beginning of the season,
and then it turned out to be pretty decent. Partly because of him. But anyway, we can talk more of that strategy when we get to that point because, I'm happy to talk through it and really hone in on better roster construction because I've got some like loose principles, but I need to develop some more firm ones. But I also really need to pee, so we need to end this episode. We'll be back tomorrow morning to talk about our two-step pitchers. Justin, it was great chatting with you. I'll see you in the morning.
Take it easy.